Well, let's get more now on one of our top stories, and that's Ukraine's advance into Russia. Maria Zolkina is a Ukrainian researcher and political analyst, and she joins me now from Warsaw in Poland. Maria, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Just how big a turning point is this incursion?
This operation, this offensive operation, is really a very important one because it has both geopolitical and some military consequences for the whole war. First and foremost, it basically undermines the myth that Ukraine is impossible to impact asymmetrically the Russia's pushes underground in Ukraine, especially in Donbas. Yes, Ukraine can, however, using asymmetrically different methods by, for instance, attacking the Russian territory itself and breaking the main myth that the war can be just on the Ukrainian territory without making any harm to Russian military forces based on Russian military territory.
How much land do you think Ukraine has gained? You know, we're hearing 28 villages have fallen to Ukrainian forces, 59,000 people have been told to leave.
According to the latest information, the modest one piece of information, it's about 48 settlements. The 28 is information from the Russian sources, from Ukrainian open data services. We have confirmed information about 48 settlements, and some more are being right now verified, because it's really very difficult. There is almost no flow of information, and we can rely only on what open data analysts are finding openly somewhere according to the geolocation, and all this needs verification within several days usually.
You mentioned that this has, you know, geopolitical and military impacts. What about the morale boost for the Ukrainian troops? What does this mean for them?
I would say that there is an interesting reaction within the Ukrainian society right now. There was no any expectations like before the 2023 Ukrainian counteroffensive, when the expectations were really high and then the results were really modest in comparison to those expectations. Right now, no one expected, neither in Russia nor within the Ukrainian society, that this would happen. And when we realize that this is happening, so the reaction is very modest. So journalists, experts, even those who have insights and information, they're not spreading this just because no one really understands the final goal. What is the main, just to push Russia for a more compromising position within the negotiations, which are being discussed right now for autumn of this year. Or this is basically mainly to impact the military disposition of Russian and Ukrainian forces on the ground, and to make Russia withdraw its forces from Donbas, for instance, to make Ukrainian militaries leave the Kursk Oblast. So this is why no one basically understands the final goal, and the reaction is really, really very modest. People are just watching, analyzing very carefully, including experts and journalists, as I said.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Russian President Putin's comment saying Ukraine will receive a worthy response. What could that look like?
Basically, we don't understand what that could be. Basically, another red line which was preserved by Russia and which many countries in the West believe so much. Another red line is broken now. Russia cannot do nothing worse to Ukraine than it has done already. They have hit it with missiles the kids' hospital in the center of Kyiv, just making harm to kids who were treated from severe diseases, including cancer. They have destroyed almost 80% of Ukrainian energy infrastructure several months ago, and there is a huge shortage of electricity all around Ukraine, even in Kyiv. 2 hours we have electricity, then 6 hours we don't have, then again 2 hours we have. So basically, Russia will continue missiles hitting, destroying of border regions of Ukraine, Sumy, Kharkiv, Donbas. But at the same time, we see that the reaction of the Russian society is very much surprising. They are not questioning why we are fighting in Ukraine at all, because the war now is actually returned to us, to our territory. We have seen pretty modest reaction from Putin himself, despite the phrase which you have quoted. They do not know what to do. They didn't have the border secured. They didn't have forces ready to fight back, including in the border points. They just surrendered immediately, and they were caught.
But is it right, if I could just interrupt you there and briefly, Maria, so we have to wrap up in a moment. I mean, we have got, there is information and reports that Russia will be moving some of its forces out of Donetsk up to this region where Ukraine has made its incursion. Given how destabilising it is for Russia and potentially damaging for Putin politically, could not they come back with force that perhaps we haven't seen yet?
Perhaps we haven't seen yet, but unfortunately for Russia, I don't think they can secure their border regions right now. They're even politically not untouchable anymore, nor for Ukraine, neither for its Western partners. We have seen that Ukraine was not allowed to use the Western weapons, was not allowed to attack any piece of Russian soil, and Ukraine didn't do that. However, it was not supported by the flow of needed weapons in time, and even by the permission to hit the occupied territories with specific types of those ATACMS from America, for instance. So now all these kind of taboos are really broken by I would say, the position of Ukraine to be a subject rather than an object in these relations with Russia.
Maria Zolkina, it's always great speaking with you, Ukrainian researcher and political analyst joining us from Warsaw, Poland. Thank you for your time.